Let us remember that we are in the holy presence of God.
Sikoy ko kamighimo langit. Sikoy ko kamighimo aldoy bulan. Ikaw ang nagbuhat sa kabituunan. Ikaw ang nagbuhat sa kalibutan. Manama, mawantog ka. Warag po ko ilingkoy ko. O Diyos, kahibulungan ka. Busa ikaw lang ang simbahon ko.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فقال ربكم ادعوني أستجب لكم آمين يا رب العالمين الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين اللهم اجمع شامل المسلمين والكريستيان والأمم في مدينة دماو وسلم دائما مجتمعنا هذا بالسلم والأمن والتقدم في بلدنا هذا آمين يا رب العالمين ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلى الله على خير خلقه سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين آمين يا رب العالمين.
In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you today to praise and worship you and give you thanks for all the things you continue to provide for ourselves and our families. Father, we humbly ask for forgiveness for all the times we have offended you, when we forget to acknowledge your presence in the image of our brothers and sisters, and for moments we fail to be good stewards of the blessings you have given us. Continue to guide and protect each one of us, Lord, that we may always walk in the light of your everlasting love and mercy. Grant us, Father, with your comfort in times of distress and with your strength in times of weakness. Bestow upon us your unending grace and healing, that we may in turn become instruments of gentleness and compassion to others. We ask all this in the name of your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ, with the prayer and the intercession of our Blessed Mother. Amen.
Manama, mawantog ka. Warag po ko ilingkoy ko. O Diyos, kahibulungan ka. Busa ikaw lang ang simbahon ko. Busa ikaw lang ang alagaran ko.
Our Lasallian prayer. I will continue, O my God, to do all my actions for the love of you. Saint John Baptist de La Salle, pray for us. Saint Benilde Romanson, pray for us. Leave Jesus in our hearts forever. Again, good afternoon, everyone. I am Jeremy De Leon from the Benilde Student Envoys, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. So to start, I would like to introduce and welcome Ms. Tricia Asturiano, Manager for External Affairs of the Benilde Student Envoys. Let us all welcome Tricia.
Good afternoon to everyone who are joining us here in BeIncluded Talks on Inclusive Community Building. We are delighted to have you all participate and share in this webinar, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all. This event could not have pulled off without the hard work and dedication of the Center for Inclusive Education, as well as NEXUS and Benilde Student Envoys. As much trust that I have for their webinars, I hope that today inspires ideas and discussions around the ways that we can make our communities a better place. Thank you again for being here, and let's have a great Friday afternoon.
Thank you, Tricia, for the warm welcome. Now, to introduce our guest speaker, let me call on Ms. Raven Senen of the Benilde Student Envoys.
Our speaker is Mr. Jaboneta. Mr. J. Mike Jaboneta is the Managing Director of NEXUS Innovation Labs of the Salle Lipa. He is also the co-founder of the Yelboat Hope Foundation and Chief Panda of IMBR Panda and several other technology startups. He sits on the boards of various organizations in the country and consults on disruptive technologies, resource mobilization, and social innovation. Jay loves to help people, companies, nonprofits, and brands breathe life into their brand story. He's a hungry man. He eats at least 100 books a year, loves chocolate, and sometimes can't live without coffee. He has worked in sales, marketing, and management roles for organizations as diverse as the Office of the President of the Philippines, Procter Gamble Philippines, Australia and New Zealand Banking Group Ltd, including Metrobank Card Corporation, Acumen, a non-profit social impact fund in New York, and Philippine Business for Social Progress. Let us all welcome Sir Jay.
Thank you, Raven. Good afternoon, everyone. Of course, thank you to our hosts and organizers this afternoon. Thank you, Diniki, to Jemai. Thank you to our hosts. And thank you for having me this afternoon. So, can I give a thumbs up if you're ready to learn? Okay.
Yes,
Good afternoon again. This afternoon, I'm gonna share with you the Yellow Boat of Hope story, which is also my personal story. And I entitled the talk this afternoon "Inclusive Community Building" because I really like as well the video, the video prayer that was shown earlier. As everybody knows, the Philippines, we are host to a diverse group of people, indigenous peoples in Mindanao, where I'm from. There's a lot of course, people from other religions, not just Roman Catholics and Christians. So I think it's very important for us when we want to build, projects that succeed, that we're very inclusive of differences or other variances that might exist in the community. So let me start. So 10 years ago, as I mentioned, I was born in Cotabato City in Mindanao. I'm not sure if there are anyone here who are from Mindanao. Is there anyone from Mindanao? You can just type it in the chat box. So I was born in Cotabato City, but for the last maybe 15 or so years, I have lived here in Manila. And a little over 11 years ago, I was invited to speak in Zamboanga City. So I went there. And during the sidelines of that summit, I never imagined that, I would hear a story that would change my life. So I'm sure every one of us, even those who weren't born, in the provinces or in the mountainside, we're very familiar with the stories of children, having to walk maybe a kilometer, 2 kilometers to get to school. There are children in China who have to, go through cliffs to get to school. And, all across the globe, we've heard of stories of kids, having to trek, having to take a bike, having to cross a bridge, having to cross a river, just to get us to school, just to get an education. But it was a story in Zamboanga City 11 years ago that truly disturbed and excited me. So on the sidelines of the summit that I attended there, one of the participants, after I gave the talk in the summit, went up to me. His name was Juljimar Gonzalez, and he told me, Jay, a year before this, we went to this village called Layag Layag. And we were on a boat. It was on parang an island. And they were on a boat. And the pagkaka-describe nila sa akin, it was 7 in the morning. And they were on a boat. And they encountered a group of kids who were swimming. And the kids were, swimming with one hand. And they were carrying a plastic bag with the other hand. And when they get tired, they would, move it to the other hand. And they would swim with the other hand. And so Juljimar and his friends got curious and asked, "What are you doing?" And the kid said, "We're going to school." And that's when they realized that the kids were actually, either carrying their school bag, they wrap it in a plastic bag, or the plastic bag it immediately contained their school supplies, notebook, etc. And so, having lived in Mindanao, being born there, and having traveled the Philippines, I thought I've heard of all these crazy stories. The children have to go through to get to school, but I couldn't imagine, a particular situation where kids have to swim to school, and so it disturbed me. Though I consider them my heroes, but can you imagine kids having to swim to school? I often joke that we hear of kids, hopefully not from Benilde, who skip school to go swimming. But here were kids who went swimming so that they can go to school. And so later on that night, I was back here in Manila. I just kept, thinking about the story. And in 2010, Facebook and all these new media platforms were new. But I just felt I needed to share the story. So I wrote a two-liner. And the next day, to my surprise, a lot of people started commenting, "How can we help? How can we help? How can we help?" And one of them, his name was Josiah Go. He immediately pledged 5,000 pesos. And that jump started what was then known as the Samwanga Funds for Little Kids, because it was a little fun for these kids. Of course, I was happy, with the outcome. I just posted a story and then people wanted to help, but I haven't seen the community. And so I called the photo that you're seeing. I called another friend. His name is Doc Anton Lim. He runs Chuchi Foundation, Sambuanga, if you're familiar with that. And I told him, "Doc, before I get the money from those who pledge or the donors, can you go to the community first and actually verify the story?" And so Doc Anton went there. He talked to the principal. He talked to the parents. He talked to the kids. And we were able to verify the story. And so we created a Facebook group, and then we brainstormed with the community. We added, the parents there, the barangay officials, the people from other people from Zamboanga City, like Doc Anton was a past president of the Rotary Club of Zamboanga, and then also from Chuchi Foundation, and then of course the donors and friends and supporters here in Manila. And then we started brainstorming, what can we do for these kids? One of them suggested, why don't we relocate them? But of course, that doesn't make sense because their main livelihood is seaweed farming and fishing. And then someone suggested, why don't we build a bridge? But that would cost in the millions and it would mean cutting the mangrove trees. And then someone said, why don't you just give them a boat? And that's how the story of the Yellow Boat of Hope Foundation started. So we decided on that. And 5 months after, I went to Zamboanga City to turn over the very first yellow boat. Why is it yellow? Because we got the inspiration from the yellow school bus, which fetches the kids from their homes and brings them to school. In our version, it's on water. So it's a school bus on water. And so up to this day, we operate a number of these boats. Of course, not right now. A lot of the boats are not being used because of COVID-19 restrictions, but the teachers and the schools are still using it for some purposes. And so the first lesson that I wanted to share with you this afternoon is that when you come up with a project, when you want to solve a particular problem in your community, you need to include the stakeholders. And I believe some of you have heard of the concept of human-centered design or design thinking. It's putting the user at the center of the design of the project. So even before you come up with a particular design, you actually talk to the eventual users. In this case, we talk to the parents, we talk to the kids, and we talk to the barangay because they're the ones who assigned a driver. And they are the ones who are going to pay for the gasoline expenses to operate the boat. So again, it's very important when we consider of solutions to particular problems, especially when we deal with diverse communities. It's very important to consider their perspective from the start. You're good so far? Let me play this video because our story, for me, it's really a powerful story on inclusion. So it's actually Christians and Buddhists in a way, Christians and Buddhists helping Muslims. So as you can see, the main community that we were helping in Zamboanga were Muslims, but the ones who raised funds and were developing the solutions were Christians and Buddhists. So again, for me, it's a powerful story. It started with a Facebook status. It started with one boat, and now we're present in 200 communities around the Philippines. So it's very important to be inclusive when you're developing solutions. So let's watch this video. This is actually not up, some details are not updated because it was created 10 years ago. But I want to bring you there when we first went to give the very first boat. to show those photo collage because if you've noticed, there are several things I forgot to mention earlier. The first one is the community there are actually they were displaced because of the infighting in Basilan, in Holosulu, and that's why they settled on the shores of Zamboanga City. And but the beauty of the project that came about, initially called Zamboanga Funds for Little Kids, but we found other communities. That's why it became Yellow Boat of Hope Foundation. Is that we design the solutions with the community. So if you can see, we didn't want to relocate them, because what would they do in the city? They might resort to begging if we relocate them, as opposed to being creating a solution that will allow them to continue doing their livelihood, which is seaweed farming and fishing. And then as you can see, we also implemented a proper garbage disposal system with them. So initially they were just throwing out to the sea. So in return, sort of in helping them, we asked them if we can clean up the coastal area where they live, and then we arrange a coastal boat with the city government, so that once a week, instead of a garbage truck, there would be a garbage boat that will collect their garbage. But again, it's really the point that I want to make here is that it's designed together with them so that they own the solution. And for me, part of being inclusive is about that. It's uh, giving people the opportunity to co-design and co-create the solution with you. A lot of us, especially people who live in the capital or in major centers, think that we know all the answers. But actually, a lot of the communities know the answers, know the solutions, but they might not have the resources. So the second lesson that I want to share with you this afternoon is that now we have a lot of examples, but in 2010 there were very few examples from the Philippines, of using technology, in our case Facebook, to make a difference. So actually, when we were starting, we created some Wanga funds for little kids, and then there was Masbate funds for little kids, and then there was Iloilo funds for little kids, and then before we renamed to Yellow Boat. But we expanded to different communities, but mainly we used Facebook to connect, with the communities, and also with the donors. So again, it doesn't necessarily need to be Facebook. It could be, in Benilde there's a lot of talented people in creatives and art. So it could be a photo, it could be an animation, it could be a video, it could be a blog post. So there are a lot of tools at our disposal to create social good or social innovation. So to date, in the last 11 years, we've been able to expand to, I believe the official number now is around 210 communities around the Philippines, and we've given close to 5,000 boats around the Philippines. And this is my favorite photo. Can everyone see the name of the boat? I took this in 2011 in Masbate. It's DLS CSB HF17. So in 2011, I gave a talk in in I think 7 classes of Sir Antonio Ingles. And after that, instead na nag Starbucks yung mga estudyante, they donated one boat in honor of their class in Masbate. And so that vote was given there, and the kids use it to go to school. So again, part of our, in a way, success was allowing donors to name the boats. And it's a remembrance for the help or the support that they provided. So which brings me to the 3 key lessons that I want to share with you this afternoon. The first one I've already shared, that we can use technology for social change, to create change. If you feel that you don't have a lot of resources, you can share, a good story or a possible solution. It doesn't really take a lot of resources now for you to create a solution to a problem. But second, this is very important. It doesn't mean that you build a website or build a Facebook page or build anything that people will just naturally come. I feel that, we with all this talk about digital technology, digital tools, we tend to forget about the humanity side. So it's the human to human interaction, the offline activities still are very important. In our case, especially during the start, I had to meet the donors in person. I had to explain to them, what the solution will be, how we're going to do it. For those that are not in Manila, I had to call them. I had to explain to them in detail what we plan to do. So it's very important that, when you feel you've created a possible solution, it doesn't mean that, there's no talking, there's no connecting that happens, and it will just, sort of fly or operate by itself. You need people so that it continues to do what it's supposed to do. Like during COVID-19, we had to talk to the teachers and the principals to, come up with another solution to the challenge that was facing us. So right now, our focus is really providing computers, printers to our adopted communities, because most of the kids are staying at home. So the teachers can just print the modules and bring them to the students for their education to continue. So again, it's very important, the person-to-person activities or interaction. And then lastly, I've realized because of the project that, people without hope won't take action. As you can see in the video, before our support, there were limited, there were limited organizations that were helping the community, and then even the community themselves weren't really, they didn't feel confident, sort of to try things. But if you've noticed in the video, one of the parents was actually the boat builder that we contracted to build the boat. So because we were willing to help them to fund the sort of the experiment, because we needed a unique boat. As you see, they had boats pero maliliit, diba? It can accommodate maybe 5 to 6 persons. And then it wasn't built for, kasi pag low tide, medyo mababa talaga yung tubig. So it needed to be flat bottom para it will not hit the corals and it will not get stuck during low tide. So it was very important for us to engage with the community, and actually the solutions were presented by them. We just needed to fund it. So again, don't discount the help that you're providing, even if you're just sharing, a possible solution, and then someone hears about it or reads about it, and then that someone takes action. So all of this create a ripple effect that helps others. And for me, I realize my personal mission is I'm in the transportation business. Figuratively, I help kids, bring kids from a place of ignorance to a place where they get an education. Physically as well with the boats, from a place that they cannot go to school to be able to go to school. So I am in the transportation business. So before I end, I when I encountered this video, I really feel that it talks a lot about the story of inclusion and the story of community building, and why inclusion should be a critical or an integral factor when we collaborate, when we build solutions. It's very important to include different perspectives, as this video will show. I'm sure everybody is familiar with the story of the rabbit and turtle. We thought that it's over, with the turtle winning the race, but apparently that story is not complete. So let me play this video.
Once upon a time, a turtle and a rabbit had an argument about who was faster. They decided to settle the argument with a race. The turtle and the rabbit both agreed on a route and started off the race. The rabbit shot ahead and ran briskly for some time. Then, seeing he was far ahead of the turtle, he thought he'd sit under a tree for some time and relax before continuing the race. He sat under the tree and soon fell asleep. The turtle, plodding on, overtook him and soon finished the race, emerging as the undisputed champ. The rabbit woke up and realized that he'd lost the race. The moral of the story is that slow and steady wins the race. This is the version of the story that we've all grown up with. But our version of the story continues. The rabbit was disappointed at losing the race, and he did some thinking. He realized that he'd lost the race only because he had been overconfident, careless, and lax. If he had not taken things for granted, there's no way the turtle could have beaten him. So, he challenged the turtle to another race. The turtle agreed. This time, the rabbit went all out and ran without stopping from start to finish. He won by several miles. The moral of the story? Fast and consistent will always beat the slow and steady. It's good to be slow and steady, but it's better to be fast and reliable. But the story doesn't end here. The turtle did some thinking this time and realized that there's no way he can beat the rabbit in a race the way it was currently formatted. He thought for a while and then challenged the rabbit to another race, but on a slightly different route. The rabbit agreed. The turtle and rabbit started off. In keeping with his self-made commitment to be consistently fast, the rabbit took off and ran at top speed until he came to a broad river. The finishing line was a couple of kilometers on the other side of the river. The rabbit sat there, wondering what to do. In the meantime, the turtle trundled along, got into the river, swam to the opposite bank, continued walking, and finished the race. The moral of the story? First, identify your core competency, and then change the playing field to suit your core competency. The story still hasn't ended. The turtle and rabbit by this time had become pretty good friends, and they did some thinking together. Both realized that the last race could have been run much better. So, the turtle and rabbit decided to do the last race again, but to run as a team this time. They started off, and this time the rabbit carried the turtle till the riverbank. There, the turtle took over and swam across with the rabbit on his back. On the opposite bank, the rabbit again carried the turtle, and they reached the finishing line together. Both the turtle and rabbit felt a greater sense of satisfaction than they'd felt earlier. The moral of the story? It's good to be individually brilliant and to have strong core competencies, but unless you're able to work in a team and harness each other's core competencies, you'll always perform below par, because there will always be situations at which you'll do poorly and someone else does well. Teamwork is mainly about situational leadership, letting the person with the relevant core competency for a situation take leadership. And that is the end of the story.
Thank you. So as you can see, I really, when I first encountered that video, I think a few years back, I really felt that community development, community building, even project management, project development needs to see that, because we all are born with different skill sets, with different strengths and weaknesses. Actually, some of our weaknesses are actually strengths. But I realized that it's important for us to work together, because different situations require different particular skill sets or strengths, and you cannot be good at all things. So it's very important to work with other people, include other people's perspectives, because the solution that will be created will be more all-encompassing. It will be more holistic, and it will be, it's easier to implement because everyone's perspective was taken into consideration. So lastly, I'd like to end with these two quotes that we use in Yellow Boat. Number one is, if you have more blessings in life, don't build a fence, build a longer table. So the same with yung sa collaboration story, no, with the rabbit and turtle. It's a we need to shift our thinking na instead of thinking how we can be the only ones that succeed, we can think na how can everybody succeed, which I think is possible because again, there are a lot of playing fields, 'di ba? Yung iba gusto music, yung iba gusto animation, yung iba gusto photography, yung iba there's actually enough room for everybody. So instead of building fences, let's build a longer table. And then the last quote that I want to share with you this afternoon, and it really speaks, to the operating philosophy of Yellow Boat. It's actually printed on our official receipt. And even in life, that we shouldn't discount the little things that we do because they do impact the world. So let me just read it. No, the great thing a little lamp can do, which the big sun cannot do, is give light at night. It shows us that no one is superior by size, but by purpose. If we cannot do great things, we can surely do small things in a great way because little things make a big difference to God. Maraming salamat po. Thank you. I'm now ready for your questions.
Thank you very much, Sir Jay, for sharing your knowledge and experiences about inclusive community building. May I just share lang din po na, Sir, I still have the bowler na binigay niyo po sa amin nung na nag-talk po kayo sa BSE way back 2019 po or 2018. Yun po about Yellow Boat po dahil sobrang na-amaze po ako sa goal and purpose po ng Yellow Boat. And wearing it po actually, it reminds me that hope is still here as it always have been, and it continuously sails.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you din po, Sir Jay. Now let me invite our facilitators for our open forum or Q&A, Mr. Martin Romero and Ms. Camille Milyoga, case managers of the Center for Inclusive Education, together with our guest speaker, Mr. Jay Jaboneta.
Okay, so thank you, Jet. Hi, Sir Jay.
Hi, Martin and Camille.
Yes,
hello
sir.
po. Good afternoon.
Hello, sir. Okay po, sir. First of all, I'd like to thank you kasi sobrang solid yung shinare niyo. Because actually, very, very timely because as we all know, we're in this very unfortunate situation na I guess marami yung nala-left out because of the situation na binibigay ng pandemic. So doon pa lang, sir, like sobrang nakakatuwa na makuha yung mga ganong lessons from your sharing kasi malaki yung maambag niya sa mga I guess sa mga umatan dito na alam mo na parang of course they don't want to take a position somewhere, like a little help, sabi niya nga, Sir Jay, na parang yung we don't have to discourage yung mga little help that we give to anyone kasi it can go a long way, parang ganun. So yeah, so again, so sobrang salamat, Sir Jay, for that sharing kasi I'm sure ako personally, sir, marami akong natutunan about this one. And nakakatawa, sir, kasi I think hindi ito yung first time na narinig ko tong story na to because I'm sure you were invited na before by Benilde. Even in Best Buddies, we invited you to share your story, Sir Jay. And nakakatuwa lang, sir, kasi it's a reminder to us that, like what you said earlier in your talk, na kailangan maging, we need to include everyone. Kasi nakakalimutan na nga siguro yung iba, especially na. All right. So actually, sir, before we proceed to the questions from the participants, may mga tanong din kami, sir. Curious din kami, of course. May mga questions din kami na we'd like to ask you. First of all, Sir Jay, siguro kasi yung share nyo, I know it's short, direct to the point na, and nakita yung we saw the effect, yung magandang effect nun to the community and Zamboanga and Masbate and everywhere na pinuntahan nyo po. Pero I'd like to talk, Sir Jay, about yung BTS, yung behind the scenes nung foundation and basically yung advocacy nyo, Sir Jay. Kasi Of course, usually yung mga na-highlight talaga lagi yung result na. Pero there are times that we forget the behind the scenes, yung mga nangyari na I'm sure hindi lahat agad successful. Of course, it will take time and everything. Pero yun, Sir Jay, I want to get to know what happened behind the scene na sa nangyari basically, Sir Jay. Ano po ba yung mga nangyari para ma-reach niyo yung goal niyo eventually?
Well, I think we've had 11 years na, so medyo marami masyado yun kung i-itemize ko siya. But I think what I can share is especially during the start, because I think that's the hardest part, to start something that will at least in a way parang it's the first prototype that works. It's a working prototype in a way. And when we were starting, the first boat builder that we approached actually failed. So nag-give up siya. Sabi niya hindi niya kaya. Na kasi yung boat na requirement namin, dapat 20 kids yung kasya. 'Di ba? Parang ano talaga siya, yellow school bus on water, and then yun flat bottom. And then the second boat builder, ganun din, nag-give up. So this is 3 months na after I got the funds. And so parang sabi ko kay Doc Anton, sabi ko sa kanya, ibalik na siguro natin yung pera. Sabi ko, parang nakakaya, 'di ba? Na parang yun, nag 3 months na, pero wala pa rin nagawa. So and then he made a last ditch effort. So he talked to the parents, and we found out na one of the parents pala knows how to, parang medyo na siya, self study, pero he is a boat builder. So yun, sabi niya, why don't you give me a trial? And so yun, he built the very first boat na it was successful.
Patingin rin, Rajan.
It was able to really fetch the kids and bring them to school. And then yun, flat bottom siya, so hindi niya nasisira yung corals underneath. And then but yun, I think it's very important na when we create a solution or when we start engaging with the community, hindi siya all bells and whistles, they say, or hindi siya lahat, di ba? Hindi siya lahat success. There are failures, especially with the experiments. So I think very important na yun, if you believe na if you crack the solution, if you create a solution, it would really help this community that you've chosen, then you would persevere, you would not give up in trying to create a solution. And I'm sure yung kumakita ninyo yung iba, even the case of Gawad Kalinga, di ba, their main dream is really to solve the housing problem. It's 4 more years, di ba? 2024 yung parang target nila. I don't think we would eliminate, di ba, homelessness in 4 years, but they're iterating, di ba? They're testing different concepts and prototypes so that they will be able to solve it. Meron na rin silang livelihood, meron na rin silang social enterprise. So I think, again, if you really believe in the vision, and if, again, there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go faster, go alone. If you want to go farther, na mas malayo, you go together. So it's very important na to work with different people so that you can create a solution that stands the test of time. So for me, very important yun yung behind the scenes. Kami ni Doc, marami din kaming mga, in a way, inside little fights, or we had also major fights, pero marami din kaming, like for example, yung mga di ba, kung kailan i-implement yung isang activity, etc. But we know na even though may differences kami, we know the vision, we know the end goal. So at the end of the day, pag we've been able to think about it, we still come together to create a solution for the project. But of course, those things even in our families, even in relationships, it happens. So don't give up. So yun siguro yung message doon. And then secondly, I think especially ngayon, COVID-19, we're at home, no? It's very important pa rin to create solutions. Kung makita nyo naman yung Yellow Boat, we started actually Facebook lang. Diba? Doc Anton was in Zamboanga, ako in Manila. We were coordinating mostly through Facebook or through online. So in a way, you can still create solutions now. Siguro mas mahirap lang because like in some of our community leaders, they can't really visit the communities kasi may restriction sa movement. But again, it shouldn't stop you from creating possible solutions that will help your target communities, however far they may be. So again, very important yun na and again, it talks to the story of inclusion, di ba, na like sa amin, we were able to create the solutions and to last, to stand the test of time. Dahil, like for example, ako, when I went for further studies, when I went to the US, Doc Anton was parang he was the main guy. And then nakabalik na ako, so nag-sharing kami ulit ng responsibilities. And then even in our responsibilities, ako kasi I get bored with the details. So pag they start talking about saan bibili ng marine plywood, ng marine epoxy, etc., ng bronze nails, I get bored. I don't listen to that anymore. But yun naman ang nag-excite kay Doc, di ba, to think about where to buy, saan gagamitin, sino kakausapin. So it's very important to have, like what I was saying earlier, it's good to have different strengths and passions, because when you come together, then laging may sasalo, di ba? If yung isa sa inyo ayaw yung isang activity, then the other person who likes it will get to do it. So very important yun na siguro to summarize it, failures are an important part. There are stepping stones to success. And then secondly, yung African proverb nga na if you wanna go faster, go alone. But if you wanna go farther, you need a team. Di ba? Kasi pag pagod ka na, parang sa rowing yan. Kung pagod ka na, di yung isa naman mag-row. Di ba? You cannot row forever. So pero kung marami kayo, pwedeng palit-palitan. Thank you.
Okay. Salamat, Sir Jay. Actually, sir, personally, sobrang gusto kong nakakarinig ng mga behind-the-scenes stories about mga success ng whatever, kung ano man yung ginagawa ng mga tao, like sa mga sports, sa business, yung mga ganun. Kasi I guess yun yung for me, like yun yung nagpapa-same level minsan kasi I think everyone naman experience failures in life. So kumbaga nakaka-relate tayo sa mga ganun. Kaya maganda rin, sir, na share nyo yan kasi nakita natin yung talagang nag-push kayo to like what you said, to reach your goals na sinet nyo po ng mga partners po kasi talagang hindi siya agad perfect. So salamat Sir Jay for sharing that one. How about you, Ms. Camille? Do you have questions to Sir Jay?
Yeah, actually sobrang comprehensive na ng sagot ni Sir Jay na na-cover na yung gusto kong itanong. Kasi right now we're in a pandemic, so nabanggit nyo nga po, some of the community leaders, they cannot just go down to the community because of the restrictions. So maybe we can start reading some of the questions from our audience.
I think there's from someone named is it Kuho Bungabon from Oriental Mindoro?
Yes po. So yeah. So from Kuho Bungabon, Oriental Mindoro, he said, Kujo. Okay, sorry about that.
It's okay.
It's okay. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Would you like to read your question po or is it okay kung ako na?
Kayo na po. Sige po.
Thank you. Po. Sige po. So from Sir Kujo, he said, thank you, Sir Jay, for a very encouraging talk. This is a bit personal and actually a superhero came across my mind. Just like with superheroes that may sometimes come to a point that they get tired helping, have you also been prone to such an experience? If so, from what do you draw strength from in order to continue? Because you know, it is the right thing to do.
Thank you, Kujo. That's a really good question. And I think in the social entrepreneurship space, I would say na ako yung isang pinaka-transparent and vocal dyan. So there were, I think there were years, even now, I'm a newbie dad. So actually medyo I took a backseat from, all other activities aside from work and taking care of my baby. So again, it goes back to doon sa, that's why for me, I feel that there's not a lot of talk around inclusion. It's very important to have a team because again, if you need to prioritize, for example, family or different things, then there would be other people who can continue to work on the project. So I think that's why that African proverb, no, it really is stuck with me. Kasi I think in a way my fault yung education system, no, o teaching us kailangan rank 1 ka, valedictorian ka. But I realized later on na you really need a team, di ba? Even any organization or corporation, you need a team para you can implement what you want in a longer time frame. So very important yun na to have a team so that even if you get tired, you can rest. Di ba sabi nga nila, if you get tired, don't give up, take some rest. So I've done that a lot. I think in the last 11 years, so yun, nag-further studies ako, 13 months yun. Though I continued to give talks, I continued to advocate for Yellow Boat, but I was out of the country for 13 months. So I lived in, it was a fellowship and further studies. So I lived in Pakistan actually. So I worked with a social enterprise there and then also in New York. But it was really good because when I went back, I could apply some of the things I learned in Yellow Boat. And then I don't know if I mean I believe everyone here believes in a divine power or God. There were times na I got really tired and sabi ko ayoko na. But somehow Yellow Boat would find its way. There would be, I would receive a call that someone wants to donate, 1,000,000 pesos. So of course, and then they would only talk to me. And I would consider it, oh, God is saying my mission is not, over. But I would think that, any founder, any entrepreneur, business or social, would need to take some rest. So again, very good yung question mo, and I think not a lot of people talk about it, but we do need to take some rest. I actually I overstayed my college education as well. I took a 1-year sabbatical. So I think it's very important because I didn't want to take, the courses that my parents were insisting I take. And so I took a sabbatical. But I think it's very important to talk about these things so that, it becomes more, in a way, common for us to question, some of the practices that doesn't necessarily apply to our modern world. So, Kujo, I hope I was able to help you with my answer. I think next question is from Jen. Hi, Jen.
Tito Jay, kamusta?
Okay naman.
Alam mo to, pare.
Yes. So the question of Jen, for everybody's appreciation, paano nag-adjust ang Yellow Boat sa current situation natin? Nag-iba ba ang focus and goals? So of course, as I mentioned earlier, our vision is really to give access to education. So whether that's boats, that's bridges. So we built bridges, we built boats, we built dormitories for parang halfway house for kids who have to walk 5 hours to get to school. So during the pandemic, we had to shift as well. We had to pivot. So the goal stays the same. It's how to get, how to bridge the school and the student. In our case, during the pandemic, so we raise funds for digital gadgets. So it could be tablets, phones, laptops, and printers. Most of our current communities, especially yung mga on far-flung islands, don't have the internet. Even if they can afford to pay data, there's no signal. So ang naging option talaga for them is for the teachers to print, bring them to the households. I think even in some urban areas, this is being done. So the teachers print it. Actually, even some private schools, I have heard, are doing it. Diba? The teachers print the modules and then weekly, parang kinukuha nila yung modules and yung mga nasagutan, and then they give the new ones. So that's in some areas, that's the current model now. But the goals stay the same. It's to get students, to get them so that they can still get an education. So that's that. So I think it's very important na for us to adapt to these new situations. And Alvin Toffler, I love citing these experts. Alvin Toffler said diba, the ones that will succeed in this new century are those hindi yung who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. It's very important for us kasi yun nga, there are new things that are coming up. So it's very important that we are able to adjust and evolve and adapt.
Thank you, Tito J.
Thank you, Jen.
All right. Thank you, Sir Jen, Sir Kuja, for the questions. Before we proceed to the question of Brother Michael, Sir J, I just have another question. Kasi
Sure.
you were mentioning sa early part of your talk about yung communication, like you need to include, you need to talk to the stakeholders of the community. Basically, you need to include them. Siguro, sir, question lang, were there any reservations ba from the community when you approach them, when you talk to them about the plan, about the idea of helping them? Kasi syempre there are people na parang minsan hindi nila gusto yung sinasuggest sa kanila, not sure kung pride na yun or what, but yun nga, sir, were there any reservations po ba when you approach them about the plan back in nung nag-start po kayo?
Thank you, Martin. That's a really good question. And I think connected siya dun sa question ni Jemai from Bacolod on what is the biggest challenge that you had sa Yellow Boat rooted sa cultural differences. So I think not necessarily cultural, no, but yung example that I want to provide in relation to your question as well. I think in a lot of instances in the Philippines, 'di ba merong yung especially sa capstone or thesis, 'di ba, sa ng mga students, and that's why we need to redesign part of our education system as well on that. A lot of communities get what do you call this, parang they get fatigued from, 'di ba, they get visited by people or groups who want to help, and then ini-interview, sino-survey, and then hindi bumabalik. 'Di ba, even to say na, oh, unfortunately we cannot proceed with the project, etc. So we had that initially as well. So yung especially doon sa actually in all the communities, sabi nila marami daw talagang pumupunta, especially during election time, and then 'di ba nagpa-promise daw ng mga ganito, ganyan, projects ganito, but nothing comes of it. So I think yun ang biggest hurdle minsan. That's why minsan parang even after Typhoon Yolanda, I think this is a good example. No? After Typhoon Yolanda, medyo nagkaroon kasi yun ng negative drawback. So a lot of families, may mga donors of boats that said, okay, magpalista lahat ng mga nasiraan ng boat, etc. And then even those na mga na wala namang boats na nasira, nagpalista, and then they accepted the boats. And then, but when you become inclusive and talk to the community why that happened, of course, a lot of them lost their homes, lost family members, and they just wanted to get something, and they thought they could sell it. So some of them actually did it. They didn't really need a boat. They weren't fishermen, but they thought if they got something, they could sell it so that they can have resources. So again, that's those are some of the things that we need to consider when implementing projects na we think na even in Masbate, I remember this, ang ganda ng beach, talagang crystal clear, blue, there are baby sharks, pero madaming mga dumi sa coastal area. And then in my mind, siguro they just throw their garbage anywhere. But when I probe deeper, I realized na galing pala yun sa urban cities. So 'di ba, it ends up there. But kasi like yung mga plastic doon, wala namang nagbebenta ng mga ganun doon sa island. So sabi ko, oo nga naman, paano nagkaroon ng mga ganun na basura na wala naman doon nagbebenta ng ganun. So sometimes we have these preconceived notions na parang I would cite that as a maybe not necessarily cultural, but it could be a barrier and a difference na that's why inclusion is very important, diba, to see the perspective of the other person. Kasi like if I didn't ask, na parang I commented na medyo pagalit pa na bakit maraming basura dito, hindi ba naglilinis, ganon. Parang if I didn't ask that, I wouldn't have been corrected na hindi pala sa kanilang basura yun, di ba? It comes from the cities who throw it sa sewage system, etc. And then it goes to the pristine beaches of the islands. So again, very important, no? And And I think the only way really to overcome that, especially if you go to different communities. Can you imagine? I lived for 9 months in Pakistan, and the media paints them as terrorists. But when I went there, I had a very very different experience. They're like Filipinos. They're very hospitable. I think I went there when I went there the first 45 days. I didn't have to pay for my lunch and dinner. They were just taking me out to lunch and dinner because they wanted to prove that Pakistan is different from how it's perceived, especially by the Western media. So I think very important for us to if there are, and then they were majority Muslim country as well. So they had I had to adjust to a lot of norms there or traditions there. But when you see it from that perspective, then you're able to respect it and you're able to actually learn from it. So again, very important that siguro yung last point ko dyan, no, dun sa question ni Jemai, when we come to the communities, we shouldn't really come with a preconceived notion na we know the solution. Because without first talking to the community, because they might have a very different perspective to it. And then when we develop the solution, then we are more informed with the and then the solution will be more successful or effective. Thank you.
Alright. Okay. Salamat po, Sir J.
May pala yun from Paranaque.
Yun yeah. So actually, di ko nga napansin na nag-message pala si Jamay sa chat. Pero yun, Sir J, sobrang thank you for sharing that one. Kasi yun nga, na-reiterate yung idea talaga na you need to communicate to the stakeholders, to the community. Kasi yun nga, iba-iba sila, like what you mentioned, sir. Like, you really need to get to know them and get to know their story. Okay, sige, Camille.
Okay, so thank you again, Sir Jay. I think yung last point nyo po, no, I think it's related to our next question from Brother Mike. So how can we move the agenda of inclusion from the sidelines to the center?
Can I make a comment? Just add to the question.
Po, brother.
Yes. Okay, it's just that a lot of the efforts, for example, social entrepreneurship, all of these things are looked at as something special added on. No, they're not really at the center even of education. In fact, I think much of our education is really towards an economy of exclusion because the global economy is an economy of exclusion. So that's the context of my question. You mentioned even the education system has to change. So what are your thoughts on that?
Thank you, brother. Parang pinapahirapan niyo yata ako sa question. But kidding aside, I think again another good question from Brother Mike. I think on the parang macro view or the broad strokes of it. I think number one, even in social entrepreneurship, social innovation, from my readings and from my personal experience, ang magandang parang may kailangan siyang dichotomy. So the way I would describe dichotomy, parang yin-yang siya na meron ka talagang champion who is parang the public persona who will champion it. For example, sa inclusion, there needs to be that someone or a group that will give voice. But it also needs, if you have a champion, you also need parang the administrator or an operator who will show the actual parang example or use case. Parang it goes in tango na while there's the story of inclusion or the story of innovation is being laid out, it's being included in policies, examples are cited. Local context, the people need to see na it can be done. Kasi 'di ba, like even for social innovation, social entrepreneurship, including incubation, for example, in a school, parang a lot of the schools in the Philippines right now look at it na it's an Ivy League in the US thing, 'di ba? Parang si Stanford, Harvard lang, MIT ang makakaya niyan. I think until we get to a level na one of the Philippine schools parang really will just parang in a way railroad it so that we will have an example. Then the other school administrators from other schools will really start seeing na pwede pala kasi someone was able to do it locally. Kasi yun parang ako I know this challenge, brother Mike, no. Even how strong the support is, in terms of parang the verbal support, it doesn't necessarily translate because our current structures are still designed based on the old model.
Model,
So I
yeah.
think locally it needs, though you have champions who are the voice, we need talaga an actual organizational example. So even sa social entrepreneurship, I think until we had the case of Gawad Kalinga, Human Nature, and all these others, Rags to Riches, Hapinoy, until we had them, even sila hindi pa din, they weren't able to take it really mainstream. So we need more action done on that front. Pero until that came about, hindi siya naging mainstream, hindi siya nagpasok ng mindshare ng mainstream people. So I think yun very important for inclusion. It's actually harder because it's very vague for some. So we really need actual examples of that. Even in our families, 'di ba? That exists. So we need to parang sort of fight those silos even within our own little families or communities. I hope I was able to answer your question, brother Mike.
Yeah, models. We need a model and we need to push it.
Yes, we need crazy. We need the crazy.
We need crazy schools.
Yes, we need the crazy
Benilde,
schools.
go.
If you notice naman, yes, I agree with that. If you notice naman, even sa US 1970s pa, early 1980s nag-start yung innovation, social innovation na Ashoka was founded in 1981 by in the US. So it's been 40 years na, 'di ba? And then ngayon talagang parang na siya, it's an established industry, or you could say sector in the US, in the UK. Skoll Foundation is very big there. So pero sa atin locally, it's still parang very new. So that's why I think we need really a school that has that can show that we've successfully. I think on inclusion, Benilde is a very clear example. And actually si De La Salle Lipa, 'di ba, we're learning a lot from the experience on inclusion. We just released a statement of inclusion as well from our sustainability office. So I think on that front there are some developments, but we need more parang case studies and models, because again yung kasi yan parang even with Yellow Boat, we needed the first boat, and then on the fifth boat sa Zamboanga, that's when we were able to open Masbate, Iloilo, parang nagsabog na siya. I mean, it immediately expanded because they all saw because before ang unang suggestion nila, why don't you just move the parents, 'di ba? Pero that's easier said than done. How can you move someone's living space, 'di ba? But usually yun ang sasabihin nila, just relocate them, 'di ba, near the school. But of course, if their livelihood is either in the mountains or in the sea, it doesn't make sense moving them. But until they saw na it's a school bus on water pala, and then we just need to assign a driver. We don't have budget for the boat, but we have budget for the gasoline expense and the driver. So then it becomes a model for all the other schools.
Yeah, I was just thinking, Jay, because of this pandemic, even when we think about professions in business, they really have to rethink in terms of actually solving problems rather than, and not that making money is a bad thing, but we really have to think in terms of addressing sustainable development goals, common good goals as central. I think part of the solution is that and the I don't know. Maybe we do need champions.
Yes. Brother, if you want me to answer that, we need another
Yeah.
session. No,
Yeah.
yung take ko lang diyan, it's really the circular
Yeah.
medyo for some hype pa siya, but it's really the circular economy model, yung triple bottom line or
Triple bottom line. Yeah.
So before yung human-centered design and design thinking, it's applied to business, and then yun, it opened a lot of a lot of opportunities, business opportunities and markets for businesses and even social enterprises. But right now, what we forget is so this is a good point, no, on inclusion. And I don't know how we add it, but we have to add the perspective of the planet. So because like, for example, yung sachet, 'di ba, na model, it was a really good economic innovation, 'di ba, na because I cannot afford to buy a 1 liter, now I'm able to buy a 100 grams or 1 ml. But what we didn't realize is it would cause a lot of plastic waste and pollution. So again, very important now when we're designing solutions is to also think of the perspective of the planet. Is it good for the planet, for the ecological system in place? So I think yun, but again, instead of, I think where I want to give a word of advice is, instead of blaming all those years na the fossils industry, etc., were doing the wrong things, I think what we should be focusing on is how do we move forward? How do we create solutions? Because again, it's very hard to change the past.
Yeah. Yes. Thank
you.
You,
Thank you, brother.
Hey. All right. Salamat po, Brother Mike and Sir Jay, for the very interesting conversation. Yeah. Actually, before we go to our next question, basahin lang natin yung mga comments ng chat.
I think Sir Jemai would like to add some comments. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Sir Jemai.
Hi Jay, salamat.
Jemai, thank you for inviting me.
And Martin, hello. Before ko sabihin yung comment to, gusto ko lang pakita to.
Si Jemai lang yung may paddle from Benilde.
Hope sales. Jay, kasi yung ground up solution design, design thinking, community-based na design thinking, na solutions, no? Do you agree na very inclusive siya? Kasi for me, ang nakikita ko, ang inclusive ng idea niya, kasi pupunta ka sa community, aalamin mo yung problema without biases, or at least bawas yung biases mo, then doon ka mag-build ng solution para sa kanila. And as you may know, no, ang innovation and inclusion goes hand in hand. Innovation and inclusion, yun, parati silang sabay. Kaya I think nandito rin si Sir Nolly from Hi-Fi sa webinar na to. And makaka-attest siya doon. Anong comments mo doon, Sir Jay? And again, thank you sa pagpunta.
No, I really recommend that na, when we design or develop solutions, it really needs, it not only needs parang us assessing or analyzing, ito yung perspective ng user. We really need to be there. We really need to see it. Actually, si ideo.org, yung field researchers nila, when they do design thinking or when they follow the process of design thinking, they go to a community. The first day talaga, they spend there 3 days to 1 week. The first day talaga, they just observe. They don't even take notes. They don't even, they don't ask questions. They just observe how the community operates. Kasi minsan, di ba, when you start asking questions, it changes It changes, parang people become defensive, etc. So the first day, parang they don't even introduce themselves. They just go there, parang they get a lay of the land. Para they will really see it. They will really see it. How the community runs without outsiders or without researchers. Because again, you can gain the right insights that way. Kasi they are not acting up for you, di ba? Usually, like ako, sa Yellow Boat, we really have a hard stance against teachers and preparing for, our is called Mababoy Island. Nilechon daw nila yung last na baboy, so naging No Baboy Island siya when we came. But yun, parang we discourage that practice kasi nga parang 'di ba, it's not a good practice. Hindi naman pwede na kada punta namin doon maghahanda yung community and then mauubos yung limited resources nila sa paghanda. So the same way din when we develop solutions, it needs to really be ground up. But again, I would say there might be cases na may exceptions. Maybe there are. I'm not really thinking of a particular example now, but I would say there are probably some examples that you might have already a good idea. Like ngayon sa baby ko, 'di ba, yung mahilig na siya mag-akyat baba. So syempre nilalagyan mo na ng safety yung mga sockets, ganon, because even if hindi mo siya tanungin, makikita mo naman na it needs to be that way para to be safe for the kid. So I think there are exceptions to it, but as much as possible, maganda if we can really design the solution from the ground up. Thank you.
Maraming salamat, Tito J. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Sir Jamai and Sir Jay. I believe, Ms. Camille, meron pa tayong mga questions? Or
Yeah. Yeah, I think let's go with Carlos na muna. He's raising
okay.
his
Yeah, kasi
hand.
naka-raise yung hand niya. Okay,
Hello,
sige,
Carlos. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Sir Jay, and Sir
Afternoon.
Martin, Ms. Camille, and the CIE people, especially to Ma'am Nikki as well. So my question is, will ethics be applied, especially in companies that promote inclusion and as well as doing corporate social responsibility practices? Because I'll be working soon after I graduate. Sir Jay.
Yes, I agree that ethics is a component of inclusion as well. So I think very important yun. Actually, let me look for it just quickly. I think there are actually what they call as the ethics of innovation. I think these are I forgot how many they are. Parang there are a few elements na they call the ethics of innovation, and that includes inclusion as well. So I agree na but of course part of our challenge now is really to get more organizations or all organizations to embrace. That's why like for example, Benilde and a few other Lasallian schools have released their statement of inclusion because very important yun. Thank you, Carlos.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay, so I think we have a question from Mr. Carlos Salvador. So it's kind of related to Carlos. It's mentioning ethics again. So is adherence to a good practice in ethical principles in business activity a factor in the effective development of social market economies? Thank you.
Yes, I think especially now with the concepts of sustainability and circular economy, I think there's a growing consensus na we need yung perspective kasi yun in preserving the balance of the ecological system. As we know, we're killing we're killing the planet. So that's why it's very important for us to consider these principles when conducting business activities. But again, it needs us our help in raising awareness, because especially in a lot of countries, it's not yet it's not really a field of interest. So it's up to us, especially for the new generations, for the students, to in a way raise the awareness around these issues. Even climate change, di ba? On the issue of climate change, a lot of the advocates in terms of raising the issue are really the younger population, because again, they're the ones who's gonna inherit and their children's children. So I think it's very important for us to know as well that we have a responsibility to educate those that may not be familiar with these concepts. Thank you, Carl.
Yes, thank you. Can I say something also?
Yeah, sure po.
From the question, what's in my mind, at the back of my mind, because the world is upside down and corrupt activities are sometimes greater and more common than ethical practices. And as a consequence, corruption or selfishness or even the desire for money or any other toxic practice when it comes to managed markets, more than even ethical practices, are not, for me, necessarily, do you think, competitive at this time? No, so parang it's really unfortunate to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Carl. So yun, I just found it. It's from the Stanford Social Innovation Review. So they posited that there are 9 principles in terms of taking ethics into innovation. So design with the user, understand the existing ecosystem, design for scale, meaning that it can really help more people, build for sustainability. I think it's very important na when I talk about sustainability here, it's no longer just about the business sustainability, but it's about the planet, but taking into consideration the planetary survival as well. And then of course, be data driven. Use open standards, open data, open source, and open innovation. Again, even with Yellow Boat, we've been copied by a lot of other organizations. They give out boats as well for kids and fishermen. And for us, it's okay because we're able to help more people. Maybe for the business sector, that might feel different, but for a social enterprise or a non-profit, we would love to get copied so that, our kind of solution actually can help more people. And then reuse and improve, do no harm. So this is very important, especially for the cosmetics industry. Before, they used to test a lot on animals. And then lastly, be collaborative. So I think very important yun, that we take into consideration these principles. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Salamat po, Sir Jay. Ms. Camille, meron pa ba tayong questions from the crowd? Baka may nag-DM sa'yo ng mga questions.
Yeah, I think merong dalawang related sa yellow boat. So yung first po, regarding the boats, were they utilized by giving jobs for the community?
Yes, in some instances, the drivers were hired by either the barangay or the school. But in other instances, of course, the boat builders we were able to employ them to build the boats. Especially after Typhoon Yolanda, we had a lot of orders for the boat, so that provided livelihood as well. And then there are a number of cases wherein the lolas or the nanays use it to sell their kakanin or their products around the islands. So we had cases like that.
Oh, okay. So I hope the one who sent me that question, Sergey, was able to answer your question. And then another po, does Yellow Boat offer volunteer or internship programs for students who advocate for quality education and would want to be a part of their team?
Yes, definitely. You can just go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/yellowboatph, and you would see, and even the website yellowboat.org, there would be a list there of volunteering activities. But of course, most of those activities now are based online because of the COVID-19 restrictions.
Okay, so let me check. Okay. So there's one question that's slightly related to community pantry. So how do you build or start an inclusive space for people nang hindi namamasama or nababacklash po sa ginawa niyong safe space na may good purpose naman po for social good? And then example is a community pantry. So were you
Community pantry, tama
ever,
ba?
yeah,
Well,
yes, sir.
we had a few community leaders that did community kitchens during the pandemic, but I think a better example kasi medyo mas sustainable siya is the halfway house that we built in before the pandemic in Zamboanga, Sibugay. So the kids there had to walk 5 hours down the mountain to get to the school. So we built a halfway house para they stay there during the Monday to Friday when they need to go to school. And so the community came together in building the school, the halfway house itself. And then we had donors to build the kitchen as well. And then the parents and teachers were taking turns in cooking for the kids. So I think that's a really good story in terms of creating some parang ganon a community space. But I think ang key learning doon is really, and I cannot stress it enough, is to co-design with the community. Because again, I'm not from there. Even the community leader doesn't live in where the school is or where the halfway house is. So it's very important for you to have someone from there who can continue, to lead in a way, diba? To parang to be the voice of the community. So in most of our communities, we call them hope paddlers. So in a way, they're paddling, the boat. And we recognize them. Like I keep telling this to them that Doc Anton and I feel we have 100 co-founders because they're the co-founder there in their specific area. And because it really, I'm not, I care, of course, for all the communities, but it might not be, on the top of my mind on a daily level. But someone from there, on an everyday level, he thinks about that community because he's there. When he wakes up, he sees the community. So it's very important to co-design or co-develop with the community, and not only that, to really have someone from the community. So even with the community pantry or kitchen projects, you want it to be sustainable, diba? So it needs to have someone there. And then kasi, in my experience, donors and sponsors will come once you show that you're consistent. Diba? As the story of the turtle and rabbit shows, if they know you're reliable, when you get funding, I've seen, especially after all these typhoons, some groups can give a very detailed accounting on how funds were spent, and then there's photos in the yellow boat. That's why even if it's parang it's a bit iffy sometimes, if I can use the term, to post a lot of pictures of the turnovers, etc. We really don't do it for PR or etc. But we do it for accountability, so that the funds that were given for the boats for the school, they know that it's been really given. And the proof is that the community is the one that posted it. It's not Yellow Boat. So we make them all admins of our Facebook page. So that's why minsan parang hindi complete yung sentences, etc. But we live with that because it's really allowing the community to post the updates themselves. I know that maybe in a formal organization, in a more formal organization, that's harder to do. But it's very important to have really, when you look at now, a lot of companies have what they call community leads, because you'd really need someone from the actual user base to be giving inputs towards development or creation of a particular product or solution.
Okay, so again, it's very detailed, it's very comprehensive. So that's the last question for our session today. So Sir Jay, I know you already shared a lot. You've been talking since about 2 hours ago, but do you have any final words for our audience today?
Well, actually, nung ending nung I'd just like to end with this, yung ending nung Hope Summit. nung 2019, the next 10 years, because we were able to identify in 2014, 2015, when Brother Armin, Luis Tro was still the Secretary of Education, we were able to identify that there are 1,000 communities that need the boats. Based on our current estimates, we're now at 200 of the 1,000. And then other groups, even DepEd themselves, I think they're into the 300 communities. So we're down to parang the last half of the communities in our list that we need to get to. So ang concept that we created from the Hope Summit was Hope It Forward. So for me there are two things that you can do. You can help Yellow Boat, by raising awareness, by donating to us, by supporting us. But secondly, and I think more importantly, you can try to create or develop a solution with a particular problem that nags at you. Because again, in our communities, so someone is a lawyer, someone is a doctor. Yung Yellow Boat is just parang the anchor. So they give the boat, but after that, they do, the lawyer does free legal advice every weekend with the community members. The doctor does medical dental missions every month. The teacher, of course, goes to the communities even on weekends. So for me, it's very important that you find a problem that you can fall in love with, because again, even in the case, don't fall in love with the solution. Like in our case, if we fell in love with the boat, we would even in the pandemic, we would be insisting that they use the boats. But because we fell in love with the problem, we can adapt any solution that is more suited to the situation or the problem. So again, because the problem doesn't end, di ba? For example, na-build mo na yung classroom, na-train mo na yung teachers, may learning supplies na sila, pero wala silang internet. Are they learning? So you need internet. O, na-provide mo na yung internet, meron ba silang gadget? Consistent ba yung internet? So actually, the problem in a way doesn't end. So that's why for me, yun yung last advice ko. Find a problem that you can fall in love with. Find a few soulmates, that complement your strengths and weaknesses, and then just go out there and do it. Just do it, as Nike said. And to end, I'd like to quote Thomas Edison, who said, "Everything in life is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration." So you need to go out there. You need to perspire to make it happen. Thank you.
Okay. Alright. Maraming salamat, Sir Jay. Sobrang
Sir
ganda
Jay.
ng final words niyo sa amin. Actually, nakakatuwa kasi may mga students ako dito na nagtitake ng thesis nila. So, guys, kung nakikinig kayo, fell in love with the problem. So, yun. So, before we let you go, Sir Jay, ask ko lang po kung okay lang po ba na i-share, kung na-i-share niyo yung contact details if in case na may gusto mag-contact sa inyo.
Yeah, sure. You can email me at jay@yellowboat.org. You can find me on Facebook, on Twitter as well. So it's just Jaboneta, JayJaboneta.
Okay, alright. So, ayan, salamat again, Sir Jay. So, ayan, so Jet, take it away. Thanks, Sir Jay.
Thank you. Happy weekend.
Thank you, Sir Martin, Miss Camille, Sir Jay, and sa ating audience. That was certainly a substantial and fruitful conversation. Now, before we end po, I would like to invite Miss Nikki Templo Perez, Director of the Center for Inclusive Education, to present the Certificate of Appreciation to our guest speaker and wrap us up.
Right. So hello, let me just change roles from interpreter to director of CIE. So Jay, thank you very much for helping us talaga with this session of BeIncluded Talks. So we would like, on behalf of CIE and BSE, we would like to award you or give you the Certificate of Appreciation. So this certificate is presented to Mr. Jay Jaboneta for sharing his expertise at the Be Included Talks on Inclusive Community Building on July 2, 2021, signed by Trisha Ray Asturiano, the Manager for External Affairs of the Benilde Student Envoys, and myself, Maria Veronica Templo Perez, the Director of the Center for Inclusive Education. So again, thank you. Thank you, Jay. I learned so much. I will have to review this video because I know I missed a lot while I was interpreting, pero ang dami ko talagang na-pick up at natutunan.
Thank you din, Nikki, and thank you, BSC, and of course to everyone.
Okay. As to end, let me just give some closing thoughts on what I heard from Jay today. No? First of all, yung 2011 na project ng Yellow Boat of Hope, I was already working at the time, and I do remember being asked to donate by friends for one of the first boats that you guys made. So nag-pool kami noon because we were a bunch of volunteers, so we pooled our money together, and I know that we donated also to the Yellow Boat of Hope. So nakakatuwa na 11 years later, you guys are still around, and that shows a lot about the passion that you have for helping communities, or rather helping communities help themselves, which is, I think, more important. You mentioned kanina, Jay, and it was mentioned kanina by Sir Jay, that we design the solutions with the community. And I think this means that it's not only inclusion that we're talking about now, but rather belonging. We're also talking about belongingness. We started out like sa Benilde, what's important is accessibility and accommodation. So that's part of inclusion. But I think after listening to Jay's talk, and it's been something that's I think we've been thinking about for some time, it's not just about accessibility and accommodation anymore, but participation. The participation of communities that we are serving or that we would like to help. So it's no longer innovation for innovation's sake, but really, ano bang natutulong ng innovation na iniisip mo? So let me just share with you something very close to my heart and has happened very recently about innovation that has gone wrong. If you are on social media, you have probably seen a bunch of engineering students come up with sign language gloves. So, and they've posted this on FB. This is their thesis. And that is an example of innovation, yes, but one that has forgotten the community that it's supposed to be serving, or what they thought the solution was for. It's just saddening na when they shared this on FB and the deaf community started to say their piece na, those gloves, they don't really help us. Kasi we will be forced to wear those and to sign so very slowly para matranslate yung signs namin into spoken word. And we have to sign in a very unnatural way, signing exact English para matranslate ng gloves yung aming mga sinesenyas. They're a burden to us. Alam niyo, it was just so saddening for me when they were commenting this on the FB post. Binash pa sila ng mga hearing people na kayo na nga tinutulungan, kayo pang mareklamo. You can't have it all. So that's an example of, I think, innovation that did not include the community that it was innovating for and did not allow them to participate. And its participation, sabi nga ni Sir Jay kanina, a community that has lost its hope will not innovate anymore or will not work towards a solution. When you give a community the opportunity to participate, it keeps their hope alive. So it really is about that. So I think it's something that we should remember, that community building, it's really a slow process. Community building is a slow process. It's about changing the status quo, and it's about doing things that are counterculture. But sabi nga ni Sir J, if you want to go fast, do it alone. If you want to go far, do it with others. Ang inisip ko, inclusion and participation. But that's an even slower process. That's an even slower process. But that is the process that is sustainable, and it is the one that's empowering to the community. So Jay, thank you very much for everything that you've shared. I learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone here has also learned a lot from you. And taking off from Brother Mike, go Benilde. If there's anyone here who can, we are already innovative. We just need to make sure na our innovation takes into consideration participation of communities that we innovate for. So thank you, and good afternoon, good evening, and happy weekend also.
Once again, we would like to thank Sir Jay for sharing us his expertise in inclusive community building. I hope we can take some of these lessons and apply them in our lives. We would also like to thank BSE, NEXUS, and CIE for making this webinar possible. We would also like to acknowledge the team behind this event: Angela, KD, Trish, Raven, Francis, Miss Camille, Sir Martin, Sir Jemai, and yours truly. Siyempre, we would like to thank you rin po for joining us this afternoon. For the last time, this has been Jeremy, your host. Thank you very much and have a wonderful night. Happy weekend, everyone.